The air still smelled like lilies, not the gentle kind that grows in a garden, but the kind pressed into tall vases and placed in every corner of a funeral home, overwhelming, cloying, and far too formal. The service had ended 3 hours ago, but I was still sitting in Callum's room, folding the shirts I couldn't bring myself to give away yet. His closet door was open, his scent lingering faintly on the fabric, some mix of cedar soap and coffee grounds that no cologne could replicate. I folded each shirt slowly, smoothing the sleeves flat like I was tucking him in again like when he was small, and asked me to make the blankets tighter. My hands moved on their own methodical, as if doing laundry might somehow tether me back to him. I didn't hear Sable come in. I just felt the shift, the air tightening like the room knew to brace before I did. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed still, in the fitted black dress she wore at the service, not a hair out of place. Her heels clicked once against the hardwood. "Save the tears," she said, her voice even too rehearsed. "Pack your bags. And learn to be useful for once." I blinked. I thought maybe I'd misheard, or that she was trying to break through her own grief with bitterness. But her expression didn't shift. I looked at her, waiting for a flicker of regret or confusion, or anything human. "You can't mean that," I finally said. My voice sounded foreign, stretched thin. "This isn't working anymore, Mara," she said. "The kids need space. You're always crying, always talking about him like he's still here. It's not healthy." I let go of the shirt in my hands. It slipped into my lap, a crumpled reminder of the years I had traded for this family of the apartment. I sold the independence I gave up. I remembered helping Nora learn to walk, holding Eli during his ear infections, filling lunchboxes, while Sable traveled for work. But in that moment, I understood I was already gone. She was just giving me the courtesy of saying it aloud. And by morning, I would have to decide what part of my life I could carry with me. I asked for 1 week, not forever, just 7 days to breathe inside the house where I last heard his voice. But Sable didn't flinch. "You'll confuse the kids if you linger," she said, like my presence was a smudge on a glass surface. "They need routine, stability, not all this emotion, as if grief were a selfish act, as if the tears I'd been choking back since Callum's heart stopped beating made me dangerous. "I help with their homework," I reminded her. "I've picked them up from school every day for the last 5 years. "I'm aware," she said, adjusting a picture frame on the mantel without looking at me. "But things are different now, and it's time to adjust." Different, that word again. It didn't mean change, it meant erasure. That evening, I opened drawers I hadn't touched in months, the ones I'd filled slowly with small things that felt like home. A recipe notebook, the scarf Callum gave me for Christmas, a packet of thank you cards I never got around to using. I packed them into a worn suitcase that once belonged to my sister. The zipper stuck halfway, and for a moment, I considered forcing it, but then I just sat down next to it and stared. I didn't pack the armchair Callum had insisted on keeping for me, the one with the green cushions that didn't match Sable's sleek decor. I didn't pack the bookshelf we filled with Sunday market finds, or the framed photo of us laughing at the lake, because she'd already moved it to the hallway closet 2 weeks ago. In the morning, I stood in the kitchen, waiting for the kettle to boil one last time. Sable came in, dressed like she had somewhere polished to be. We didn't speak. My car keys were in my coat pocket, my bags by the door. Eli's lunchbox sat on the counter half-zipped. I thought about scribbling a note, just something small. But I knew she'd find it first and throw it away. So I left without a word, just the sound of the door clicking shut behind me as I stepped out of the house that used to be mine. The first night in the car, I told myself it was temporary, just a few days. I'd find something, a room, a basement, even a couch. But days turned to a week, and then another. I parked behind a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, where no one knew me, and the staff didn't ask questions. At 6 each morning, I slipped into the restroom to wash my face, brush my teeth with bottled water, and fix my hair in the mirror above the cracked sink. Then I'd order one small coffee and sit in the farthest booth, making it last as long as I could. I read old newspapers strangers left behind, underlining phrases with a pen that barely worked just to feel like I had something to do. Most afternoons I'd drive past the elementary school, just far enough to see the playground, but not be seen. Eli ran like his father used to, legs too long for his frame. Nora skipped in loops, chasing the hem of her own jacket. I watched them laugh and forgot for a moment that I wasn't allowed to be part of it anymore. At the grocery store, I spotted Cheryl Alston, my old neighbor. We used to swap zucchini bread and watch the 4th of July fireworks from her porch. I opened my mouth to say hello, but she looked straight through me, her cart rolling past like I didn't exist. I glanced at my reflection in the freezer. Door-creased shirt. Second-day hair paper bag, clutched too tightly in my hand. I didn't blame her. I wouldn't have recognized me either. At night, I curled into the passenger seat with Callum's old sweater for a pillow. I kept my phone off most of the time to preserve battery. No one was calling anyway. One evening, I passed the house again. Sable had taken down the wind chimes. The porch lights were colder now, and the curtains stayed shut. The lawn was perfect, but it looked like no one lived there. I parked 2 blocks away and sat in silence until the sky faded to charcoal. That's when the phone lit up for the first time in days, an unknown number blinking on the screen. I almost didn't answer. The number was unfamiliar, and I'd learned the hard way that most calls brought bad news or no help at all. But something in me moved before doubt could catch up. "Mrs. Ellison?" a calm voice asked. "This is Arturo Rios. I'm an attorney with Rios and Beckman. I was your son Callum's legal representative. I've been trying to reach you." My hand tightened around the phone. "Yes, I'm here. I know this may come as a surprise, but there are matters concerning your son's estate that require your presence. Are you able to meet today?" I agreed without asking where I was supposed to change or how I was supposed to look like someone who belonged in a law office. I wiped down my shoes in the diner restroom, brushed my hair into something close to neat, and sat through the drive, gripping the steering wheel harder than I needed to. The office was quiet, glassy too, polished for someone who'd slept in her car last night. Mr. Rios greeted me with a firm handshake and eyes that didn't flinch at my worn coat or hollow cheeks. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "But I'm glad you're here. Your son was very specific about what he wanted done and who was to be informed." He slid a thick file across the desk. "Callum met with me 3 months before he passed. He was concerned about certain behaviors from his spouse and wanted to update his will accordingly. He asked me to keep everything confidential until after his death." I stared at him. "What kind of update?" Mr. Rios folded his hands. "He left a trust in your name. $5 million to be exact. Protected, untouchable by anyone else. To be released upon confirmation of 2 events: his passing and your removal from the household." My breath caught. He knew, yes, Mr. Rios said softly. He suspected more than he could prove in time. But he prepared for it anyway. I didn't speak. I couldn't. The only thing I could do was listen as he reached for a second envelope, one marked in my son's handwriting, sealed and waiting for me. Mr. Rios opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small black recorder. He held it for a moment, then placed it gently between us. "Your son asked me to play this for you. If anything happened to him," he said. He pressed play. At first, there was only static. Then Sable's voice came through sharper than I remembered. "I just need her out of the house," she said. "She walks around like she owns the place. Callum won't do it himself. He's too soft, but once he's gone, things will be different." A pause. Then another voice, a man's, low and casual. "You said the policy clears within 30 days, right?" Sable laughed. That's the least of my concerns. I just want the house to myself, and the money will help with the move. I've already talked to Kara in California about starting fresh. I stopped breathing. My hands went cold. She's good with the kids, sure, Sable continued, but she's not my responsibility. She'll land on her feet. She always does. Mr. Rios clicked the recorder off. She didn't know she was being recorded, he said quietly. Callum set up several of these. Most were short, but the intent is clear. I nodded, not because I understood it all yet, but because my body needed to do something other than shake. Mr. Rios reached into the folder and removed a sealed envelope. My name was written across the front in Callum's familiar slanted handwriting. I've read this already. I was instructed to read it aloud unless you preferred to do so yourself. My fingers didn't trust themselves, so I nodded again. He unfolded the letter. Mom, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. And that Sable got to you before I could stop her. I started noticing things. The late nights, the way she talked about the insurance, the emails she didn't think I saw. I couldn't accuse her not without proof, but I couldn't ignore it either. I know how this must look. Me being paranoid, you being pushed aside. But I saw it coming, Mom. And I did everything I could to protect you. I left instructions with Mr. Rios. Audio. Paperwork. A new will. A clause for the kids. If anything happened to me, and if Sable made good on what I feared, I wanted everything to go to you. Not because I pity you, because I trust you. Protect the kids. Protect yourself. And please don't let her win. Your son Callum. Mr. Rios folded the letter slowly and placed it back on the desk. I sat in silence, clutching the edge of the chair like I was trying to stay tethered to the earth. And for the first time in weeks, I felt my hands close around something solid. Mr. Rios tapped his pen against a second set of documents neatly clipped and labeled with my name. There's one more provision, he said. This one concerns your grandchildren. I leaned forward, trying to steady the rush of disbelief still rattling beneath my ribs. Callum submitted an affidavit, along with his updated will, he continued. In it, he detailed a number of incidents, comments from Sable behaviors he found alarming. Most notably, her fixation on life insurance payouts and repeated remarks about starting over after his death. I closed my eyes briefly. I could already hear her voice saying it. Mr. Rios went on. He also noted a growing detachment from the children, missed school events, canceled appointments, moments of emotional absence. And he was concerned that if left unchecked, the children would be raised more by staff and image than by family. He paused. So he added a clause. If after his death you were removed from the household or denied access to Eli and Nora, then full legal custody would transfer to you. My head snapped up. Custody, yes, he said. Along with a financial provision, housing, schooling, a living stipend. All of it already arranged. The trust will sustain both you and the children without dependence on Sable. I couldn't speak. For days I'd been sleeping in my car, wondering how I'd ever see my grandchildren again. And now I held the weight of their future in my hands. He gave me custody, I whispered. He trusted me more than he didn't just trust you, Mr. Rios said. He counted on you. I looked down at the papers again, at the names typed neatly beside mine. Eli Camden Ellison, Nora Wren Ellison. Callum had left me more than money. He'd left me the children. The ones I'd bathed, fed, held through tantrums and nightmares and first fevers. The ones I thought I had lost. My hands, still trembling, reached for the documents. I didn't need to read every word to understand what this meant. I was no longer just a grieving mother. I was the one coming home with them. The house looked the same. Trimmed lawn, perfect symmetry porch cushions, arranged like a catalog photo. But this time I wasn't knocking alone. Mr. Rios walked beside me, calm and collected. Behind us, a county social worker held a clipboard and a small bag of paperwork. The officer at the curb kept a respectful distance, but his presence anchored everything. Sable opened the door wearing a loose sweater and her usual carefully indifferent expression. But her face shifted when she saw me, then again, when she noticed I wasn't alone. "Can I help you?" she said tightly. Mr. Rios stepped forward. "Mrs. Ellison, I'm Arturo Rios, your late husband's legal counsel. We're here regarding provisions in his estate. May we come in?" She hesitated. "Is this a joke?" "No," I said, voice steady. "It isn't." Inside the house was stripped of anything soft. Callum's armchair was gone. The framed photos had been replaced with abstract art and silver mirrors. It didn't look like a home. It looked like something she was ready to sell. Mr. Rios laid out the documents on the kitchen island. "These are legally binding. Your husband revised his will months before his passing. Based on recent actions, including the removal of his mother from the residence and restricted access to the children custody, now transfers to Mrs. Mara Ellison." Sable scoffed. "That's insane. You can't just take them." Mr. Rios pressed play on the recorder. Her voice filled the room again. "I just want the house to myself. She'll land on her feet. She always does." Sable's face paled. "You recorded me." "No," I said quietly. "Callum did." She reached for the paper, scanning fast, her fingers twitching. "No, this can't be real. He wouldn't. He never." "He did," Mr. Rios said. "Every clause, every signature, every word." The social worker stepped forward gently. "We'll be collecting the children from school. Their belongings can be retrieved later." Sable stumbled back, eyes wide, mouth parted, like she'd forgotten how to close it. "You don't understand," she whispered. "This was supposed to be my fresh start." "I know," I said, "and this is mine." I turned to the door, my name already written on a new chapter I hadn't expected to inherit. The apartment was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, pale blue walls, a kitchen that still smelled like fresh paint. Mr. Rios had arranged everything the first month's rent, a modest furniture set, even the butterfly nightlight Nora had once refused to sleep without. I unpacked, slowly placing one familiar object at a time, until it felt like something more than temporary. At 3:15 sharp, we waited outside the school. When Eli and Nora stepped out, their backpacks, dragging their faces still tight from weeks of silence, I knelt down so we were eye to eye. "Hi, my loves," I said, careful not to crowd them. Nora blinked hard. "Are you staying this time?" "I'm not just staying," I said. "You're coming with me." Eli looked from me to the social worker and back again. "But Mom said you left because you didn't want us." My heart cracked in two. I reached out slowly and placed my hand over his. "That wasn't true. I never wanted to leave you. I love you both more than anything." They didn't rush into my arms, but they didn't pull away either, and that was enough. That night, we sat on the floor with a pizza box between us, paper plates sliding across a borrowed coffee table. Nora giggled when the cheese stuck to her chin. Eli asked if we could eat like this every Friday. I said we could make our own rules now. After dinner, I pulled out an old photo album, the one with Callum in baseball uniforms and Halloween costumes, his messy scrawl labeling each year. We flipped through pages slowly. "Your dad once filled his shoes with peanut butter," I said, grinning. "Said it would make him run faster. Your grandpa had to wash them out with a butter knife and 2 hours of patience." Eli snorted. "That's disgusting." "That's your father," I smiled. "And he would have loved this night." Nora leaned against me, eyelids drooping, and for the first time in weeks, the silence in the room didn't feel like absence. It felt like peace. The letter had softened with time. The edges curled slightly, and a faint crease ran through the middle where I'd folded and unfolded it too many times. I kept it in the drawer by my bed, beneath the nightlight remote and the stack of Nora's drawings. Some nights after the kids were asleep and the apartment settled into its quiet hum, I would take it out and read it again. You were never a burden. You were the heart of this family. If I couldn't protect you in life, at least let me do it now." Callum's words still landed with weight, but they no longer cracked something inside me. Now they filled it. Eli was back in soccer. Nora had joined an art club and painted me a picture of our apartment with crooked windows and yellow stars on the roof. They laughed freely again, interrupted each other at dinner, left socks under the couch. The kind of chaos I'd once taken for granted. Sable visited every other Saturday, always supervised, always on time. She brought small gifts, now books, puzzles, sometimes just herself. She smiled more cautiously, listened more than she spoke. I wasn't sure if she'd changed, but the children were no longer afraid to speak around her. That was enough. One evening, Nora crawled into my lap with a blanket and whispered, "You feel like home." And I thought, yes, that's what Callum knew all along. I turned off the lamp, folded the letter one more time, and placed it back where it belonged. Then I stepped into the hallway, where the sounds of quiet breathing echoed from 2 rooms filled with color and warmth. And in that stillness, I finally slept, without fear of being forgotten.